4,
2,
Uno.
Paulie here, back on the Latino Slant. Thank you for checking out this video. Make sure you are subscribed and consider becoming a member, as you all get great perks, exclusive videos, hangouts with filmmakers, musicians, writers, and more. Okay, finally, Brandon Lauren Maxwell from the Daily Chela has written a opinion piece on the term Latinx. Can't believe he hasn't done it any sooner. Our good friends at the Daily Chela, make sure you check them out as well. And I gotta say, before we get into this piece, make sure you do comment. But also, too, I want to let you guys know pretty much 99% on par with Mr. Brandon. So let's get to it because, you know, we've been too quiet and too respectful for too long. And we, being Chicanos, if we're the last holdout, we're the loudest holdouts now, the loudest pushing back, and the loudest to say, yo, what's going on? And here, this article: Why Chicanos Reject Latinx by Brandon Lauren Maxwell. And he's got an image from the 40s of a young Pachuco being stripped down naked. It's this really shocking image. And you just never forget that. You never forget that. And all the people that are watching him, from the sailors and the cops, stripping him down in public. And that was a watershed moment for Chicanos and Mexican Americans in U.S. history, and what has become since then. Let's get into it. It takes an impressive level of hubris. Boy goes out with the word hubris right away. For a journalist to call their own readers Latinx when knowing so many of them despise the label. At the very least, it demands a level of willful ignorance that can only be explained by an elitist political worldview or weirdly insular social circle. Proponents, of course, love to boast that they are being inclusive. But to the average person whose entire world doesn't revolve around projecting fake virtue on Twitter, the argument should erase. Excuse me, let me take that back. The argument that we should erase 98% of people to avoid erasing 2% of people is fraught with bizarre and inconsistent logic. The kind of logic, evidently, that lands you a coveted opinion gig at a legacy newspaper. The primary question for critics like myself, however, isn't whether individuals should be able to identify how they want. The question is whether media and academia should keep using the label as a lazy catchphrase, catch-all phrase, downplaying and conflating the contributions of individual cultures. Whoa! Whoa! My boy swinging. Swinging. And I gotta say, I agree. I mean, as soon as I got this article, we were doing a video. We have to. We have to. The slant demands it. The slant demands it. Let's get back into it. Let's make these words a little bigger as well, shall we? How's that? Much better. Much better. Cool. Because that is exactly what happens when people use the label Latinx. Nobody pushes back against the label Latinx harder and louder than self-identified Chicanos, for a good reason. Mexican American history runs long and deep in the United States. Chicanos are proud of this history. They are proud of this heritage. As a result, many are defensive and protective of it, particularly when it comes to anything that might erase or gloss over it. It was, after all, Mexican Americans who fought the sailors in the streets of Los Angeles during the Zoot Suit riots. It was Mexican Americans who were rounded up by the hundreds during World War II. It was Mexican Americans who marched in the streets of East LA during the Vietnam War. It was the southwestern portion of the United States that once belonged to Mexico. This is Chicano history, not Latinx history. Nonetheless, this hasn't stopped some people from suggesting there is a parallel between Chicano and Latinx. The comparison, however, is flawed. At its heart, Chicano is widely embraced working class social and political. Let me do that again. Getting excited here. I'm feeling it. At its heart, Chicano is widely embraced working class social and political identity. On the contrary, Latinx is elitist jargon that the working class largely rejects. Super, super rejects. I would say we're talking in the 90 percentile. It is the polar opposite of Chicano. It is the language of the intelligentsia and the bourgeoisie. Latinx is feel good psychobabble. Chicano is the decades long culmination of suffering, expression, and rebellion. Rebellion. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Let's have a little fun. Many reasons. There's a couple reasons why I got this hat, and this is one of them. Chicanos are rebellious. That's how we are. I love this article. Let's get back into it. They aren't built the same. Pretending otherwise is rhetorical cosplay. It isn't surprising that the label Latinx continues to stubbornly linger, despite pushback from the very people it pretends to represent. In many cases, the loudest proponents of the label have a political or financial interest in peddling the label, whether they want to openly admit it or not. For many, the label has nothing to do with inclusion and everything to do with self-preservation. After all, who wants to go through the inconvenience of changing the name of an entire college department, newsletter, or podcast? I don't blame anyone for protecting their brand. However, it isn't the fault of the broader Chicano community that a handful of people made the mistake of building their brand on a fleeting sentiment. Nicely said, my friend. Nicely said. I'm going to keep on reading. I'm going to keep on reading. The logic is equally self-serving when proponents argue that there are more important things to debate than Latinx. What they're really saying is that 90% of the people should just shut up and be okay with 2% of the people imposing their political worldview on them. Yes, yes, sí, señor, yes. The Latino Slant is a YouTube channel. Your memberships matter, so we can just keep this thing clean, even from a movie review where I pay either a discount or a full price, or music that I go and buy, that I support a musician or a tour or a book. I buy the book to review it. I talk to the author, or in this case, we're a YouTube channel. We're completely independent. And if and when that day we get a third party sponsor, we will tell them we're going to be completely independent because we want to be able to talk and give our thoughts and opinions and welcome other thoughts and opinions as well and have great discord. Yeah, man. The Chicano um outlook on life is a punk aesthetic. And you hardcore punk people, punk music, the punk aesthetic, anti-establishment, anti-government, anti-authority, anti just worldviews of thoughts that just, it's like, nah, dog, I'm questioning you. You know what I'm talking about. And then when we're told to shut up because our 98%, you 98 percenters are wrong. You're full of bigotry and you're not inclusive. All right. Brandon's slinging it, man. Brandon is slinging it, slinging it. Leave your comments right now. I want to know what you think. I want to know what is on your mind with this article. Article is in the video description. Woo, I'm loving it. What other issues do we apply the same logic to? The argument feels even more disingenuous considering nobody seems to mind debating trivial issues like hot Cheetos or tamales. Or is it tamal? It's tamal. One tamal, two tamales. Other proponents have suggested that embracing our cultural distinctions is somehow promotes division. But in a climate ruled by identity politics, how can proponents have it both ways? On one hand, we are told our intersectional distinctions should inform and dictate our daily mindset. But the moment one of us expresses us too much pride in our distinctions, and in this case, I'll say it, my brown pride, we are told to we are being divisive. Which is it? Because Chicanos know who they are. If you're brown, you know who you are. Of course, the problem with identity politics is the politics always trump the identity. In response, many Mexican Americans believe there is a deliberate attempt by special interests to erase their identity in favor of consolidating the Latino community into one generic block under the guise of inclusivity. I largely agree. Special interests want us to forget our history. They want us to believe that we can all be summed up with one generic label. But in order to achieve this, they first must pressure everybody to get in line, which turns out is easier said than done with Mexican Americans and self described Chicanos, who represent the Latino majority in the US, remain the most vocal holdouts. Absolutely. This isn't to argue that there can't be a place for this label, and here on the Latino Slant, we've said it all the time. We welcome people that call themselves Latinx. Come and debate, come and have a good time. I don't get on their case. That's silly. I practice this respect. However, when I reject your blanket statements that were Latinx this and Latinx that, and it's like, nah, dog. No. Calma. I have a handful of friends, primarily in the media and academia, of course, who use the label. Many of them even use the label in the specific context to which it was designed. However, at this point, the label Latinx also comes with bigger political connotations than just being inclusive. Yes, this is very important, guys, because it's not about inclusivity. It's about a certain political set of ideals, principles that, in my humble opinion, are not ones you can practice on a realistic daily basis. It's fantasy. It's fantasy. Okay, let's go back. By virtue of only a small club of elitist progressives using it, the label now comes pre-baked with a whole set of political ideals and positions that the greater Chicano community may or may not endorse. And that's a problem. Latinos are not monolithic. Yet a small group of narcissists want to treat it like it is to serve themselves. I mean, this is Brandon's cutting to it, man. Brandon's cutting to it. Make no mistake, the debate is bigger than the Chicano identity. It is about media and academia continually steamrolling the working class. It is about elitists trying to convince Chicanos that anyone who refuses to get in line is somehow being divisive. The truth is, Mexican Americans, along with self-identified Chicanos, aren't against inclusivity and tolerance. They are against revisionism, elitism, and erasure. There is a difference. Wow. Thank you so much, Brandon, for that great article. Link is in the description. Now, I want to know what you guys think. You know what I think. You know what I've read. Chicanos reject Latinx. It's quite a statement, and yet there's a lot of truth there. All right, we'll see you next time, and wherever you're at, keep your slant muy fuerte. Paz.
Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all. The slant.
Yeah, but isn't this the unplugged version? I don't know. I think it's the unplugged version. All right, Paulie, let's go.